Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So today I'm going to talk to you about getting a basic mix set up to sound good. And, well, it's only going to sound as good as you can do it, but I'm going to try and help you guys to give you a ballpark idea of how things go and a little bit of an idea of what I do in here. Now, this is my new mixing board, so it's way more advanced than that little 12-channel Yami I had. I liked it. It worked fine, but I did need more. I needed bigger, I needed more ports, I needed more accessibility, more features, that sort of stuff, okay? And now I have a 22-channel board, in which case I've not used anywhere close to that, which is good because now I got lots of ports open for other things, and that's good. I like that. So anyways, not all boards are equal. Not all boards are the same for features. Some have more, some have less. And this one has a heck of a lot more features than what I thought, and it was a little intimidating at first, and I'm like, oh. So, one thing we have, come on, turn on, you stupid thing. I think my batteries are dying. Anyway, so we have a high, we have high mid-frequency, which is 2-dial combination, low mid-frequency, 2-dial combination, and then a main low-frequency area, okay? And that spreads across right up until channels 17 and 18, okay? Now those are our main channels, okay? The other channels are stereo bus channels and whatnot, so they're used for other stuff. And a couple of these are actually still stereo bus, but they still have the same features in here, okay? So right up to actually 17 and 18 is the last one that has everything, like, pretty much, except you don't have limiters or high Z access on these particular ones. But anyway, so what's a high Z? High Z is for different impedance input, like a guitar, for example. Okay, it could be an acoustic electric, it could be a regular electric guitar, passive pickups or active pickups, it could be a keyboard. You're going through the headphone out, okay, or even from the line out. You should be using the high Z function to protect the circuits and protect from overloading signal into the board, which is also why we also have a combination of what's called limiters, okay? And these limiters prevent the signal from being overdriven. So you want to set things up first with the limiter off, see where things go, and you want to make sure that your level meters try and stay within 0, no more than +3. Okay, anything past +3, even flickers, is distortion that is coming about that you're not going to want to have in your mix. So you got to keep it at a solid 3 or above. I recommend trying to keep it as much as possible at 0, with maybe the odd little flick here and there to a 3, and that is completely acceptable. Okay? Now, once you get your gains set for each person's vocals and the instruments and so on, then you got to start dialing in the vocals as far as their bass, mids, and treble frequencies go per voice. Men and women are not the same, okay, by any means, and there is no set of, it has to be these settings for men, all men, and these settings for all women. That's total garbage, okay? Anybody who's told you any differently, it needs to study more on mixing boards and people's voices. Okay, I've actually talked to a lot of professionals myself, and that have been in the industry for a dog's age longer than even I've been playing with boards. And I've also listened to the more, even younger generational alleged experts who actually know their stuff and know what they're talking about. And so, there you go. Anyways, settling that argument. You also have high-pass filters. These are great for vocalists. Some vocalists, you'll need to use them. Other vocalists, nope, don't do it. In my case, my vocal levels, nope, no high-pass filter for me, okay? Different mics will react differently, okay? This board also has phantom power for phantom-powered mics, okay? These are mics that require juice. So this is something that you don't want to use unless you need to. Now, you could turn phantom power on to a regular everyday passive mic, and it's not going to do anything to it, but you know, you shouldn't be using the phantom power switch unless you require the phantom power, okay? So otherwise they say don't use it. You know, unless you need it, don't actually use it because it's kind of pointless. But anyways, this board has a lot of features. I'm not going to go through them in this video because that's not what this video is about. This video is to help you to try and dial in a decent mix. Now, if you are running, like I have a Beat Buddy, I also have a regular drum kit too, but I can only do so much at once. But with my Beat Buddy, I actually found that I had to change some of the settings, okay, just to make it sound better, okay. Whereas on my Yamaha board, older board, bass, mid, and treble always stayed right centered and it sounded great. But on this board, it didn't. I had to do a little bit of tweaking of the dials, and now the Beat Buddy sounds awesome, okay? And that's a big thing. You also got to watch bass levels. Even on singers, especially bass singers, throw their bass levels way down low, because otherwise these people are going to muffle the mix. Especially if you try recording it, oh my gosh, it's going to totally muffle you. Same as your drummer. Get control of your drummer, because your drummer is going to drown everybody out if you let him. The only problem is venue size. Okay, if you're playing in churches, you're going to need a cage for your drummer if he's got an acoustic kit, or put him on an electronic kit and then you can control him. Okay, he'll still need a personal monitor to hear himself play, obviously, on stage. But you also got to make sure that stays under control so he's still not too loud. Otherwise, again, he's killing your mix, because all his loudness is going to go through all your microphones on stage. It cross double talks the audio and sounds horrifying. Okay? And the same goes with your bass singers. Don't let them get out of control. Don't even let your lead or backup singers get out of control where they're too loud. But there's a loudness level for everything, right? Lead singer always is the top of the chain, and they have to be louder, obviously, than even their own instrument, especially if they're playing solo. I'm going to give you examples of that today. Below that, we have a drum machine. The drummer must be much lower, okay, than the vocal, and the guitar needs to be higher than the drums. And these are the three areas we're going to concentrate on today. Now, with my amplifier, because I'm using an acoustic effect through my pedal board, which goes into my Boss Katana amp, then comes back out again through its line out, I had to make a few little adjustments to the sound of the Katana so that the acoustic simulator actually sounded better, because it was a little nasally for my taste on this board. On my other board, I could leave those controls always centered. Again, not all boards are equal, so keep that in mind, right? Things will change. So, let's do this. Now I'm going to run this first with no reverb effect. Now the guitar does have studio chorus effect. Just a bit, not a whole lot. You don't need a lot, otherwise it sounds too like sounds horrible. I'm just going to play something I've been working on for a new song. I just got to remember it. I'm going crazy over you. I'm going crazy over you. You're my whole life. You're everything to me. I'm going crazy over you. I'm going crazy over you. Now, that's pretty dry on the vocals. I personally don't like it, but you can hear the vocals are higher. By the way, I'm recording this on a camcorder, so this was the only way to show you what's going on at the board, and you're hearing the playback through my Yorkville studio monitors. And even with what this camera is going to pick up, it's not top drawer audio, but it's not what this video is meant for. Stay tuned for those videos. I will be doing a lot with this board. I'm still getting more and more acquainted. I've got about 95% of this board figured out already. So that's pretty good in 2 days. Anyway, so now we're going to add some reverb. And we're going to start out with a little bit of reverb, so about 10 o'clock. Going crazy over you. Going crazy over you. You're my whole life. You're my everything. Going crazy. playing a little bit different. I'm not going precisely all the time, but close enough. So let's see what happens when we add in a lot. That's about 1/30 of the dial, pretty much. Go crazy over you. Go crazy over you. You're my whole world. You're everything to me. Go crazy over you. I think that's a little bit much myself. Let's pull that back to about 12 o'clock. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add in drums. We need drums. I'm going crazy over you. I'm going crazy over you. You're my whole world. You're everything to me. Going crazy over you. Going crazy over you. Let's pull the drums back a little bit. Going crazy over you. Need a little bit more drums. I'm going crazy over you. I'm going crazy over you. You're my whole life. You're everything to me. Going crazy over you. So that, I think, is pretty well balanced. I am able to hear enough of the drums. It's not wild. I'm definitely hearing the guitar, which I want to hear a lot of. And I've definitely got a lot of vocals in there that are over top of both instruments. And that is the way things should be. Now, as far as getting it tighter and tighter, I mean, that takes adjustment and playing and really listening. And you got to have a really good sound guy that can really tighten up that mix, and then you can put her through and away you go. Now, generally in a pro studio, you are recording one track at a time. And a lot of guys that actually have home studios, like me, also do one track at a time. I don't have the desire or energy, for that matter, to go through and do one track at a time, because it can be such a royal pain just to line the tracks up one at a time so that they're precisely, everything starts at the right times and all this, and then you can individually modify stuff. I don't need to individually modify anything. You know, like even with my electric drum kit, you know, I have it set. Now I will have to, of course, figure out the mix on it eventually. And that'll take a little bit of experimenting where I'm going to have to play with some multi-tracks, you know, only because right now I'm the drummer, I'm the guitar player, you know, I'm the one-man show here, I'm the piano player, okay? Unless I get friends over, in which case life will be a lot more fun. And that means rearranging this area again, and, you know, I would have to actually move the board and the speakers into another room, and then my wife becomes our sound engineer at that point. So I would prefer to keep everything in here if I can. But setting things up is very important, you know. So you get a proper sound, a proper mix, you get the right amount of reverb or whatever effect you're using for your vocalists. In some songs there's like a radio voice effect that some singers use in some of their songs. And that's a really cool effect, although we don't have the radio voice on this board, but we do have quite a bit of choices. And I like the options that came with this board, which was a really big thing. And the board, for me, is very simple and easy to run. I've studied the manual a bit, because there are a few things I had to learn about that I never came across before, like limiters. And what does a limiter switch do? Well, it prevents you from actually putting too much signal in. It'll actually stop it. and which also stops distortion from happening when you're checking your PFL. So it doesn't mean you get to crank the gain to the full tilt and get away with it, no. But it means it does prevent too strong of a signal from coming in. The high Z's, of course, are for instruments that you're plugging in direct, like if you're not going to use a DI box, for example, you can plug direct into the board, providing you have high Z capable inputs, in which case this board actually does support it, and it has an actual high Z circuit that you can turn on and off. And of course we do have the limiters as well, which I have left for active. Now when it comes to the high pass filters as well, those are generally only for vocals. You can use them on an instrument. I've been farting around with that a little bit with my drum beat buddy and stuff, and for some things it kind of works and some things it kind of really doesn't. For my vocal range though, and how my vocals need to be set up, I actually can't use the high pass filter because it actually throws my voice out of whack with my trebles, mids, and everything. And it's kind of like, hey, so you gotta learn your board, right? And of course we do have 5 aux channels total. The 3 green ones, of course, are your main 3 auxes. These blue ones are FX1 and 2, but they can also be used if you're not going to use the onboard effects, or say you want to just only use one of the onboard effects for one particular purpose, right? Then you can just use that as a 4th. But if you do need up to 5, you've got 5 auxes on this board, which is pretty good, for a 22 channel board to have 5 auxes. I mean, you can literally run an entire band with this. This thing has actually been listed as being, according to the company, for the touring musicians, no problem, okay? And great, even in small churches. I mean, you shouldn't need more than 22 channels in any church, anything more than that is a little overkill, but you never know. Something might happen, the church will grow, and you might need those extra channels. So sometimes it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, type of thing, right? But anyways, so every board is going to be different. Sensitivity levels are different too, even when it comes down to the whole slider length. With the slider length, really doesn't make that huge of an impact. So if this was like 50 mil instead of 100 mil, it would shorten things up, definitely. Some people feel that it gives them more control by having a longer range. That probably has, I'm not sure on that one 100%, but there could be a little bit of truth behind it with having the longer range available, especially if you're dealing with input levels that need to be pushed a little harder. Maybe you need that little extra bit. That could be true, that maybe there is something to be said about having longer sliders, but I've never had a problem even with my Yamaha, and its slider range was almost half of this, I think. It was definitely a lot less, way less, and I've never run out of slider room ever, and I've never had to max a slider. And that's the other thing we get into, is if you're having to drive a channel so high like this to get enough output out of it, even through your main house speakers, you've got something set up definitely really wrong, because it should never ever get that high, okay? But it's again in the hands of your engineer. They have to be able to fix that issue, because you need all the headroom you can get to go out through your faders, because these also go out to the house. They're not just part of doing your mix for getting things going for your recording. They are also part of controlling your output with your house level. Now my house level, of course, is down really low. As you can see, my master is very low, and I can't push it much harder, and I've got a lot of room. But see, I'm not going out to my powered speakers. I'm going into a Focusrite USB box, so I can only allow so much of that signal to be pushed, but I also only want so much of that signal to be pushed in either way, so that I can get good input to the computer for my levels for doing my recordings. Because even if I have all of this stuff, great, if I start overdriving my house into my Focusrite box, I will start distorting my signal into the box. I'll overdrive everything, no matter where I set my gains. Trust me, I've been messing with this for the last few days, so I've got everything staying pretty steady in the greens, so we're all good. Now, The group outs as well, you can use group outs as another choice. Now my group outs, they have to run pretty high to go into my wireless in-ear system, because it's a different setup, of course, and it's going to require a lot more of a preamp input stage to get me the volume levels I need at the other end on my receiver pack, so I can hear what's going on in my mix. And it also gives me more control over my in-ears when I can drive that up. And I'm not worried about distorting signal in this case, because I'm not, so I'm still golden. And I'm running it as a stereo group mix. Same as 3 and 4 is running as a stereo group mix. The levels are much lower, that's fine. That set of groups are actually going to the line input of my home stereo, which allows me to re-listen to my mix through home stereo speakers and through my monitors. I get to do a comparison, and then this way, if I find that it sounds very bad, to my liking anyways, through my home stereo speakers on the playback, I can say, okay, there's where I really need to change stuff. I'm hearing too much of this, not enough of that. So even sometimes your own studio monitors could be a bit deceptive, right? And bigger monitors does not make a difference. Okay, that just means you get a lot more bass out of them. You know, so you don't need massive monitors. I've had 8-inch monitors, and I was driving 90 watts a side in here, and it's like ridiculous. You know, nice but ridiculous. So the YSM5s actually work quite well. I'm happy with them. They do the job. But I'm glad I have the stereo in here to actually listen through my speakers. And I've high-end speakers. I'm running Paradigm, and they're what's called a monitor speaker, so they're going to actually be able to reproduce what I've done really well. Okay, so they're pretty much, I wouldn't say they're quite as good as the Yorkvilles, but they're really darn close, you know. So that gives me a really good idea, so that in this way I say, okay, my mix is good, my sound is good, I'm happy with that. I'm going to post that up on YouTube, and while I'm at it, cut an MP3 copy off to the side for future use for building my own music CD. And so there you go. And that's the nice advantage of having all those toys in here and knowing how to run them. Of course, you do have USB outs on mixers too, but I will get into a lot of detail on this mixer in another video. Probably a couple of videos, but I wanted to show you about setting a mix and getting a basic mix set, and you know, how that's achieved and how generally it should go for you in the end, and so you get a real-time feeling for it. So if you're thinking of actually, you know, you've never run a mixing board before, they're really not that hard. Don't let them intimidate you. I would say probably don't buy something that's way too more than what you need. You know, like 22 channels is fine, and there's a lot of features in this board that were not there in the Yamaha, and this board has actually enhanced things way beyond my expectations, so I'm very, very pleased with it. You know, I couldn't have asked for better for the money, you know, and this is still not a cheap board to buy new. Again, we'll talk about that in the review video that's going to be coming. But definitely worth every penny for sure. Okay, and there are other boards out there. There are better boards, I'm sure, out there. You know, and there are more expensive boards that are lousier out there too. You know, or they're good boards, but they just don't give you enough toys. And you do need the toys in order to make things musical masterpieces, we'll say. You know, but if you're you know, looking to get into doing your own mixing, you know, depending on how your setup is. Now, like I said, I've got a keyboard in here, I've got guitars, I got drums. You know, I mean, I'm a one-guy band here, but I do have friends that can play these instruments with me. So, I mean, we can get together, and there's enough space in here now I can do that, where we can all get together and jam it out and have a big blast and cut our own music right into the computer direct and have a blast. So we can do that. But definitely this is a good thing, I think, for you guys to take a look at. So if you're having problems figuring out, how do I get the mix right, and how do I do this, you know, this is what this video was about. So anyways, enough of this. I'm out of here. Stay tuned for the review on this board. It is coming. I've got a little bit more to learn, and then I think I'll be more than prepared to give you my full opinion on this, but in the meantime, I got other things I want to do with this board to get some songs going, because I'm getting itchy to put some music videos on YouTube. So anyways, catch you later. Ciao.